So I'll start with you, Spencer. It's certainly not surprising to see loyalty in the top three for why people break policy, but why should companies be considering preferred loyalty when it comes to travel policy?
Absolutely. And our business travelers love their points, right? Points and seats are kind of their two main things that they love, but there's two different reasons for that. And the first reason is more of an HR, overall people focused, right? So when it comes to business travel, as Matt said, it's not as luxurious as it used to be 20 years ago. It is definitely more of a grind. And because of that, that's a huge perk for those travelers to be away from their families throughout the week, to receive those points, that loyalty, the extra status. When they are away from their business trips, they can actually enjoy the trips with their family. And then second, that flight with Delta, if they have certain status with Delta, might be $20 more expensive than United. You have to take into account your travel policy. If you do allow for ancillary fees, such as seat charges or checked luggage or anything like that, those charges often are waived if you have a certain status. So you have to look at the overall big picture with that in mind as well.
That's a really great point, Spencer. I think about my own travel last year, and if I didn't have the status that I had, I would certainly be attempting to bill that economy plus seat back to my organization. So sometimes those run $60 a pop. I took 30 plus flights this year. That's almost $2,000. So that's a really, really good call out on how loyalty aligns to cost savings. And that really brings us to our problem statement here, why we're all here today and what we're hoping to help you all solve. What we see in 2025 more than anything is that your people are battling their own experience versus trying to be compliant within your policy and your organization. Before I move on, I'd love to take this to Matt here. As I understand it, you are the enforcer, the final say at your organization when people want exceptions or out of policy approvals. How do you feel about this problem statement here?
Yep, I think it's a strong problem statement. There's certainly a balance to be struck between experience and compliance. I think how the problem statement is addressed is very, very important. So this is all contingent on there being like a very clear purpose to the program. What are you trying to achieve with your program? Why do you have a program? Is it savings? Is it visibility? Is it employee experience, duty of care? And then how do those priorities kind of rank? Because it's very likely several things, but how do those priorities rank? And then that purpose needs to be supported by a clear policy. So when I think about policy compliance, that only matters if the policy directly supports the purpose. Compliance to a policy that doesn't support a purpose is meaningless. So you really want to ensure that your policy is clearly supporting your purpose. So as context, at our company, we do not have an overly restrictive policy. So there are very few exceptions that do actually come my way. Our policy and the terms within it more so reiterate the need for being cost conscious. And our employees and our employee base and their behaviors have really shown that they are cost conscious and they've really earned not being treated like children. So we've designed our program to really enable them and make the best decisions for them. Yes, we have a per diem cap and receipt requirement and stuff like that, but our online booking tool is pretty much unrestricted. However, the actual booking process within the tool or with our agents is designed to coach and guide the traveler as they're going through the booking experience to be thinking about cost conscious opportunities. So, hey, you're booking a non-refundable flight, or hey, there's something that's $200 cheaper. Have you thought of this? We guide them effectively, but enable them and don't shackle them so that they can just make the best decisions for their needs. We primarily govern. That's not to say people can do whatever they want to do and then off they go. We do govern ongoing with activity reporting, QBRs. We really do review the behaviors to identify where there's trends, and then maybe we'll handle coaching opportunities on a case-by-case basis. But that's kind of how we've set that up here, and that works well for our business. We don't really have an intention of changing that now, but again, we govern that ongoing to make sure that it's still an effective way to go.
I love that answer. Thank you so much, Matt. I think it's a great call out to say that, you have the responsibility and the autonomy on the individual, but you've built the systems and the processes and the rules so that they feel comfortable in making that autonomous decision and not feeling like they're battling something here. So that takes us into the solution. And of course, again, why we're all here today. So a clear and well-documented policy and well-communicated saves both money and time. Time is certainly a valuable resource for all of us. Can we all believe that it's 2025? No, that's insane. But certainly it's very, very important. So as we're trying to align cost with experience, think about the time that your people are spending here. We're going to take you through ultimately 3 recommendations here. And all of these recommendations, we've ultimately built your policy recommendations from the ground up, the traveler up, whereas we normally talk about things from business stakeholders, business purpose down. So as Matt mentioned earlier, your business certainly needs to have aligned goals and certainly targets to aim for when it comes to your travel program. But think about building policy and updating policy based on the actual end user, the traveler. First and foremost, documented and easily accessible rules, not prices, provide the clarity and certainty for your employees and that confidence that they're looking for. The dynamic cost of travel is not up to your traveler to monitor. A little flashback here for us 10, 15 years ago, we all remember most prices were pretty static based on fare category. When that fare category moved or filled up, you moved on to the next one and that price was also static. That's just not the case nowadays. It's so dynamic, it changes so rapidly that it's not up to your traveler to understand those price points. It's up to the technology and the process to support that policy underneath. A couple of examples here. Think about aligning your rules within your policy based on which cabin am I allowed to book, based on my role, maybe based on how frequently I travel, versus how much am I allowed to spend. The rule in that policy really provides the clarity of exactly what's allowed to be booked, and then potentially my travel tool or my travel manager will stop me from booking something that's too expensive based on that timing. We've also posed a couple of questions, sub-questions underneath each of these. So your travelers are also asking things like, does this change if I'm flying longer than a certain amount of hours? If I'm flying international nonstop, am I allowed to fly an upgraded cabin? All of those rules should be clearly documented for your people. In the same vein with hotels, where they stay, where they sleep, where should I be staying in relation to where I'm going versus what is my rate allowance for that specific city? Again, each city so dynamic, so different. It's better to help your traveler understand what a clear rule is around, do I need to stay at a company specific negotiated hotel, or do I have the ability to choose the hotel loyalty that's important to me? And then lastly, where do I book? How should I book? Make sure that that's clearly documented within your travel policy, and the purpose, again, is understood as to why. Your business goals are aligned to the reasons why you have to book through a single source, but certainly we want that travel management partner to enhance the experience for your people. When people read this, they're asking questions like, what if I have high status on an airline and I can get through directly to the 1K desk? I don't need to work with the travel management company. Those sorts of things need to be documented and answered because this is what your people are asking. So I'll pause there and I'd love to pass it over to Matt. Based on this, can you think of a change or something you've updated in your own policy that's directly tied back to your bottom line?
Yep, for sure, Brett. So the biggest change that we made was about a year and a half ago when we implemented Melon itself. So before we had Melon, we had an antiquated system. It was terrible, a lot of noise about it. And essentially it diluted confidence in our program pre us implementing Melon. Now that we have Melon, we have a lot more confidence. We have a full confidence in the program to support our business's needs. So we defer to the business to define what their needs are for their travel. And then we are certain that they are going to get the best deal for that need when it is refined. And that's how our program has been set up.
It really does, ultimately come down to the technology supporting whatever your business goal, your policies are, and then making that clearly communicated to your people. This really is a nice segue actually for our second recommendation point here as we move on, which is that your technology and your process should complement each other. On the ground, your people are asking things like, put yourself in a new hire's shoes when they're reading your travel policy. What's the process before and after travel? How do I seek approval to take a trip in the first place? Do I have to submit receipts or save them? How do I expense back? Understanding these are different policies. There are your expense policy, which certainly lives in a different spot, but how can we link those two together within the travel policy to make it clear? What if there's an issue with my technology? What's my backup plan? Here at Corporate Traveler, I know that farmers integrate Spencer's direct contact info into their travel policy so they know they have that resource 24/7 if they're not able to fulfill what they need to online. And then the last point of recommendation here is think about your administrators, your business stakeholders, people that might not access the travel program except for to collect data or maybe talk about cost cutting or cost saving measures. Those people can utilize your travel policy to find direct access to those reports, the admin suite, whatever they're looking to access. So consider, direct links actually within your travel policy that help those business stakeholders not have to chase down these things to internal or external support, but ultimately can find those things directly themselves. I'd like to go back here for a second to you, Matt. You mentioned something earlier about basic economy, and I know we talked about this before we started in the green room. It causes confusion, it causes conflict, of course, because it's the best price, but it has some restrictions. Tell us about what happened at FBN and how you tackled this.
Basic economy is an ongoing conversation. We talk about the concept in every QBR that we have, just about whether it's working, what are our lost dollars there, is it worth it to enable that, or should we be considering restricting it? So we do enable it, we do allow it. Again, both within the tool and with our agents, we're continually reiterating to people that, hey, this is non-refundable. Are you sure your plans aren't going to change? And so again, we are educating and enabling and governing. That just seems to have been really working well for us. We also, like I mentioned, we track the lost dollars that are had by when, someone cancels a non-refundable ticket and then we just are out that money. We have assessed that the lost dollars there are not material enough such that we want to pull back our enablement of the user to select basic economy. We do govern that. And if for some reason it does get kind of out of control over time, we could revisit. But for now, yes, there is a lost dollar component to it. But relative to the fact that it is working a lot, there are still plenty of opportunities where people are still pursuing their flight, still pursuing their basic economy flight and getting the best deal. And everyone here is really so cost conscious. They're all acting like an owner. They want to get the best deal. So we want to enable that and we want to encourage and kind of promote that behavior. Just governing that, tracking that is what has worked for us to make sure that it's still an effective policy parameter to enable.
Wonderful. I love that. It really highlights again that the individual is making this decision that's best for them, but also you're ensuring that your travel technology highlights what those limitations might be right up front. So it's not book first and then regret it later, right? They can make that decision in the booking process. Our third point of recommendation, just to recap, first and foremost, clearly documented and well-communicated rules, not prices, is the first point of guidance. The second is align that with your technology. This is where the price point monitoring comes into play. The tech should do the heavy lifting of monitoring dynamic pricing, while the rules are up to the individual. And then last but not least, let's talk a little bit about traveler experience. So your traveler's well-being improves overall employee satisfaction and retention. Here are a couple things within your travel policy that you can look to evaluate and see if you've got these things documented. Number one, what happens when plans change? So much of the anxiety around business travel is tied back to uncertainty. So what does my support look like? What if I'm in an emergency? What if it's 2:00 in the morning? All of these things are being asked of your business travelers. So just make sure that that stuff is well outlined. They have direct contact information 24/7, and the approval process is clearly outlined as well. You don't want someone stuck at 2:00 in the morning, wary to make a change or a decision because it's going to cost your organization an extra $50. The primary goal there is the employee safety and experience and getting them where they need to be. Secondly, here, how can your people maximize their business travel rewards in their own personal life? So consider these questions and actually answering them within your travel policy in 2025. Am I allowed to bring my spouse? How do I pay for myself personally, but have the business pay for the business portion of the trip? Can I add that on together? Which rewards programs should I be signing up for? To Matt's point of goals, maybe you've just signed an agreement with Delta Airlines or United Airlines, and your majority of your travelers are committed to American Airlines. How can you encourage them and how can you give them direct access to benefit from your company's preferred partner? You can put that directly in the policy and make sure that that purpose is clearly understood. And then last but not least, this one's certainly near and dear to me, what resources are available for your people to keep them safe, healthy, and happy on the road? There's oftentimes confusion around rideshare and which price points we're allowed to work within. So again, a blanketed policy around rideshare is certainly something that provides comfortability to your people. Am I allowed to factor in exercise time or potentially pick a hotel that has the exercise facility that's right for me so I can keep that routine in my normal life? And then lastly, think about your people that travel on weekends for your organization. You're pulling them away from family, pulling them away from home. A little bit of allowance for potentially something like entertainment, extra per diem if you travel on the weekends, is a small financial burden to give an enhanced experience to your traveler, which again, they enjoy the trip more, they're happier with your organization, and they're staying with you.